welcome into Texans Today. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and on today's show, I'm going to be breaking down 5 draft targets for the Texans at pick 42 after the Stefon Diggs trade. In my last video where I told you my top targets at 42, I had a couple wide receivers there. I don't think the Texans now go wide receiver at pick 42. I still think they might pick a wide receiver, but after this Stefon Diggs trade, I'll let you know 5 guys who I think the Texans might select there at pick 42. But speaking of trades, a little Texans trivia for you folks at home. I'm going to give you the answer to this at the end of today's video, so stick around to the very end, see if you got it right. Let me know down in the comment section your answer to our trivia question for today. What did the Texans trade to the Falcons for Matt Schaub? What did they give up in the trade to acquire Matt Schaub from the Atlanta Falcons? Let me know down in the comment section, what do you think they gave up? I mean, look what they gave up for Stefon Diggs. What do you think they gave up for Matt Schaub? Let me know what you think it is down in the comment section. I'll tell you the answer at the end of today's video. Now, before I get into my 5 guys who I think the Texans could draft at pick 42, here are the honorable mentions that I wanted to run through with y'all guys. First, Tyler Nubin. I've had him in a ton of my videos, and honestly, could have a case for him still being in the top 5. Texans still have a need at safety. He is the top safety on my board, the top safety on our draft guru here at Chat Sports' board as well for the safety position. Tyler Nubin, he is an absolute stud, but I didn't want to just kind of beat a dead horse and talk about him over and over again. That's kind of why he's on one of my honorable mentions. Devondre Sweat. A little sticky situation getting a DWI this past weekend in Austin. Not good for the young man's draft stock just a couple weeks heading into the NFL draft. I think he slides down boards here. I mean, one of the most important moments of your life, and you're doing a decision like that. I mean, you just got to be smarter than that. Kool-Aid McKinstry, a guy who a lot of people had as one of the top corners in this year's draft, but had a foot injury that was, kind of seen at the combine. I still think he is a really good cornerback. I don't even know if he makes it to 42, but I would love for the Texans to look at Kool-Aid McKinstry if he was on the board at 42. Adisa Isaac, somebody who the Texans brought in for a top 30 visit, an edge rusher. I don't think edge is a big need for the Texans, but they really like Isaac out of Penn State. And Christian Mahogany, the offensive lineman out of Boston College, another guy the Texans have met with this offseason. They're looking to add to the interior of that offensive line. Mahogany could be another guy that they mentioned. But I talked about Devondre Sweat, his stupid decision he made to, I mean, come on. You are about to make millions of dollars. Let's be honest with everybody right now. This isn't a thing at Devondre Sweat. This is like more of people in general, people who are put in this position, who have the right to be, play a game for millions of dollars, and you're going to chance all that by drinking and driving or getting behind the wheel while you're intoxicated. I mean, it's just an absolute idiotic decision. So let me ask you folks at home, should the Texans still draft Devondre Sweat, defensive lineman out of the University of Texas? Tell me yes, tell me no. Give me your thoughts down in the comments section. I mean, I don't think this makes this man undraftable, but at the same time, it is a massive red flag. 2 weeks before what should be the biggest day of this young man's life, he makes a decision like that. I mean, he has to have smarter people around him. He has to realize, I'm about to make millions of dollars. What is it to me if I take a $20, $30 Uber? Really, at the end of the day. So you got to make better decisions. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Should the Texans still draft Devondre Sweat? Now, coming in, my top 5 targets at pick 42, I still love Ennis Rakestraw Jr., cornerback from Mizzou. He really fits well with what the Texans like to do, which is zone coverage. This past season at Mizzou, 35 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 4 PBUs, no interceptions, and only 1 forced fumble. His coverage stats, though, pretty decent. He was targeted 28 times, 18 completions on that, 197 yards allowed, 1 touchdown, 4 PBUs to no interceptions, and a quarterback rating when targeted of 96.9. I like Rakestraw as a prospect. He's, really good build. Long, lanky, good height, good size for the position, is really athletic. Obviously, didn't get targeted as much this year as he did last year. Only played 9 games compared to 13 he did last year. But Ennis Rakestraw, I think if he falls to the Texans at 42, would be a really good selection. Don't get me wrong. I believe in DeMeco Ryans of this coaching staff, and they obviously see something in Jeff Okudah and C.J. Henderson and these guys that they brought in. to go opposite of Derek Stingley. But at the same time, I still think you need more competition at that position during OTAs, during the preseason, to really get the best out of this defense and make sure you have somebody who can cover opposite of Derek Stingley. Next up, Jerzon Newton, a.k.a. Johnny Newton, which he's going by now. Jerzon, Johnny, whatever you want to call him, he is an absolute dog on the interior of the defensive line. This past season, for the Fighting Illini, 52 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks from a defensive tackle position. That's really impressive. 43 pressures and 1 forced fumble. He can definitely get after the quarterback, and it's not just this year. We look at his stats over the course of his career, even last year, 5.5 sacks, 59 pressures, 14 tackles for loss. Newton is an absolute beast in the middle. And if he's there at 42, I would love the Texans to look at drafting the kid out of Illinois. I mean, 6'2", 295 pounds. Maybe he's not your run-stuffing defensive tackle up the middle, but he is a good player at the defensive tackle spot. Another guy who can bring pressure on the interior of this defensive line. Jerzon Newton would be a really good addition to the Houston Texans. Now, I have 3 more names for you, but I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsors over at PrizePicks. Get started today. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. All you got to do, pick 2 or plus players, choose more or less on projected stat types, and place your entry. Football season, it's over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Tonight is the March Madness final game. We're going to crown a winner. It's either going to be UConn or Purdue. So why not get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into some serious cash. Now, I'm not big into college basketball. I watch March Madness. I filled out a bracket, but I'm not a hoop head. So I had one of our guys who follows college basketball here at Chat Sports, one of our college sports analysts here at Chat Sports, put together a PrizePicks for me and you folks at home. Donovan Clingan, he said more than 13.5 points. Zach Edey, the big man from Purdue, he went less on the 38.5 points, rebounds, and assists for Edey. Think it's going to be a little bit of a slower day for Zach Edey in a championship game. And then Stephon Castle, 11 points. He's taking the less. You can use these picks or you can fade these picks. Just do it over at PrizePicks. And one of the best things is PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, download the app or go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Next up on my Texans draft targets at pick 42, Payton Wilson, linebacker from NC State. And here's a guy where I think he is the best linebacker prospect in this year's draft. I think he would be a first-round talent if it wasn't for his injury issues that he suffered while he was at NC State. But, 138 tackles, 17.5 tackles for loss this past season for Wilson. He is an absolute machine. And you know who loves their linebackers? It would be former linebacker DeMeco Ryans. What he could do with Wilson, and now you have a linebacking room with Payton Wilson, Christian Harris, and Azeez Al-Shaair. It would be one of the best in the National Football League, in my opinion, once DeMeco Ryans got his hands on these guys and was really able to coach them up. And, he's good run stuffing. He's good in coverage as well. Look at his coverage stats from last season. 37 attempts, 24 completions, 221 yards, no touchdowns allowed. Once again, 6 pass breakups to 3 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 47.2 when targeted. I think Wilson would be a slam dunk if he falls to the Texans at pick 42. And I think linebacker is a big need for the Texans. They don't have a lot of depth there. I think they're going to spend multiple picks this year at the linebacker spot. But what say you? How many linebackers will the Texans draft this year? Do you think it's 1, 2, maybe even 3 linebackers? They don't have a lot of guys on that depth chart. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. How many linebackers will the Texans draft during this season? Next up, Zach Frazier, offensive lineman. I'm switching over to the offensive side, and I want to go O-line because you already have the weapons on the outside. You already have the running back in Joe Mixon, the quarterback in C.J. Stroud. All you need is the protection, and this offense will be one of the best threats in the entire National Football League. Zach Frazier, I think he would do just that. He brings a solidified player on the interior of your offensive line where you can either put him at guard. He's played mostly center at West Virginia, so you can either plug and play him at center, have Juice Scruggs or Jarrett Patterson play guard, or Jarrett Patterson at guard, and then you have Frazier and Scruggs battle for it at left guard. I really like the pick of Zach Frazier, 6'3", 310 pounds, a big guy from West Virginia. His PFF stats from this past season, 74.5 overall, 0 sacks allowed, only 3 hits, 4 hurries, 4 penalties. Zach Frazier would add a lot more depth on the interior of this offensive line. And the last name on this list, and forgive me, I've tried saying it. Producer Tex will vouch for me. I tried it before we brought it up. Kingsley Suamata'i. Suamata'i. There, I tried it. I tried my best, Kingsley. I'm sorry. But I would love if the Texans selected you at pick 42, the offensive tackle from BYU, a bigger guy, 6'6", 325 pounds. I think the Texans brought him in for a top 30 visit for a reason. I think another sneaky move the Texans might try to do is Kingsley, this past season, didn't fare as well at left tackle, 67.5 overall, 2 sacks allowed, 5 hits, 6 hurries. But if we go to the depth chart really quick, I put in the offensive line depth chart for you, Tex. Kingsley, I think, could be an option if the Texans, and they flirted with this last year, if they wanted to put him at right tackle and move Titus Howard to left tackle. I think that could be an option for the Texans if they wanted to. Titus Howard played some guard last year. So if you move Titus Howard over to left guard and you draft Kingsley Suamata'i and put him at right tackle, he played very well in 2022 for BYU, for the Cougars, at right tackle. I think Kingsley could be a guy you slide in at right tackle and then maybe move Titus Howard over and you solidify the left side of your offensive line. Right side, you have Shaq Mason and you have a guy in Kingsley, a big 6'6", 325-pound tackle who you can really maul with on that right side as well. Those are my top 5 guys that I think the Texans could select at pick 42, but I wasn't going to get out of here without answering today's trivia question one more time. It was, what did the Texans trade the Falcons for Matt Schaub? It was 2 second-round picks. You got that right? Let me know down in the comments section because you know ball. You absolutely know ball. The Texans gave up 2 second-round picks for Matt Schaub back in the day, and they gave up a 2025 second-round pick for Stefon Diggs. I mean, what a trade by Nick Caserio still. Even if it's a one-year deal, I still absolutely love the move. Now, that's all I have for you on today's program. If you haven't already, go down and hit that sub button for free Texans coverage all year long. We're the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube. So if you haven't already, go down and hit that sub button for daily Texans videos.